Day 3 of our conference. It's Thursday. Without any further delay, let's get into our first talk. Ruth from the Leibniz Institute of Agriculture Development in Transition of Economics will tell us something about agent-based modeling and reinforced learning. I think this is a combination of two technologies which were not done before. So, Ruth, the stage is yours, and welcome.
So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. I'm going to present our work, on some work we are doing on deep reinforcement learning in our agent-based model, AgriPoliS, to simulate strategic land-market interactions. So I'll start by introducing you to what we do. So AgriPoliS is a research software that we use to simulate the effect of policy changes on the structure of the agriculture within a specific region. For example, if Bavaria today decides to introduce a new policy to limit the size of land, so we'll be able to see how this would change the whole structure of agriculture. So what we start with is that we have an artificial landscape with regions, and this has different farms, and these farms are specially located within our model. And they also do different things. So some are mixed, some are into livestock, some are doing some mixed farming, some are just into crops. And these farms take action in that they decide how much to produce, when to produce, how they will produce, basically which technology they will use or they need to buy. And the other thing is that these are all limited by the resources they have, so that we talk about investments, how much machinery they have, how much money they have, how much land they have. They also interact within each other, so the farms interact during the course of production, and the main way they interact now is through the land market. I will explain it a bit later. And also this falls under the policy environment. We also sometimes try to capture the perception of farmers, so we can also think of the model as a behavioral model. Like mentioned, under production, so the farm can decide how much to produce. So what are they producing? Are they going for beef, or are they producing milk? Are they producing crops? Are they producing wheat, barley, corn, or so on? Or are they keeping sheep and so on? But all these production decisions come at a cost. So how much money does it cost to produce this? And it's also limited by the resources they have. They also decide also on the investments, so we'd have tractors, milk parlors, milk sheds, storage warehouses, and all that. Like I still mentioned, why I keep that money is a very important element. So a big central question is, how can farmers grow? So you have all the resources. You have invested, you have exhausted the capacity that you have. So you need maybe more land for you to be able to expand and for you to be able to grow. So what normally farms in AgriPoliS grow is that they rent additional land from the rental market. So in the model, we do it by auction market. So we have different farms, and the key idea is that this is the main interaction arena for all these different farms. And that's the only way farms can grow. So we have different plots. These plots are specially located within the model. So let's say take two farmers, Jane and John. So Jane decides to bid a certain amount of money. John also decides to do the same. So the person with the highest bid gets the land. So in this case, for example, Jane bid the most amount of land, so the plot goes to Jane. But also, John has a chance now to bid again because it's iterative until all the plots are located. So he gets the land, and like I said, it continues until all the plots get allocated. So let's now dive into how does the farmer now decide that I'm going to rent this additional land. So what we do is that we calculate a bid based on, first of all, how much do I think I will get from getting this piece of land, so how much additional money can I make if I rent the land? Then we subtract the transportation cost because they are not, like I said, these plots are spatially located, so you need money. Usually it's within a distance of like 10 kilometers, so you subtract it, and then you multiply it by a coefficient. And this coefficient, its work is to lower the bid amount. Why it's important is because I've calculated how much money I'm going to make, but you don't want to spend all this money on just renting the plot of land, because you still have to pay for the plot of land, you still have to pay administration fees, you still have to pay taxes. So the coefficient lowers the amount of money to bid. So we've been assuming a fixed coefficient ratio of 0.5. But then we're like, so how would this bid now affect? So this is a scenario. Let's say if I have calculated and I have 1,000, and then I decide maybe my bid is 0.9, which is around 900 euros. Of course, like money is a scarce resource to any business, and so applies to any farms. So if I decide I'm going to spend all my money on this piece of land, it means I have less money to make other investment decisions. As much as I'm able to get the land and maybe grow, it limits on how much I can do with it. If I decide to go low, it means also like I lower my probability of getting that piece of land. And if I lower my probability of getting that piece of land, it means I won't be able to grow as fast as I can. I can only grow using the resources I have to other resources. And if you decide to bid, then even limits you further. So what would now be the chances? So how can I balance between how much money should I bid and how much should I spend on other investment probability? And that based the question of bidding objectives. So our objectives is to find a bidding strategy that maximizes the farm's long-term performance, and we measure long-term performance in terms of equity capital, which is basically assets minus our liabilities to find the same. So there are three intertwined ideas. So how do I come up with a very strategic bidding amount? While I factor, at the same time, I should be able to factor in strategies that worked, bidding amounts that got me the land in the previous time, but also at the same time, I should be able to explore new ways of bidding. So to that effect, we now implement reinforcement learning because we consider different ways. So I'm going to explain how we do it through our experimental setup. So we initialize it with a small region with 7 farms, and one farm is the reinforcement agent, where the other farms are normal, like farms you would have in AgriPoliS. Sorry, too small. So these 2 farms, farm agent 1 and the reinforcement learning agent, have the same similar structure for us to be able to compare them to, while the others have different structure. And the normal farm agents use the fixed bidding coefficient of 0.5, while the reinforcement learning agent plays around with the bidding coefficient to find out a mix. The other things to note is that normally farms in a region would be more, but you choose these farms, and the criteria was that they were heterogeneous. They produce different things. They're active. It needed to be very fast, so there we can see how they bid in the land market. And they are stable, because you don't want farms dropping out after every two years. So for that, we had the state variables. So instead of just considering transportation costs and the additional benefits, they also consider rental contracts that were there being enforced before. So how many contracts are going to expire, so they need new land? What is the management ability of the farm? How much did they pay for rent the previous year? They also need to consider investments. So how many investments do they have? What is the cost of this investment? And how much time is remaining until the investments become obsolete and they need to reinvest in the investment? And also we consider liquidity, so how much money they have, the age of the farm. They also consider some sector level variables. So they consider how many plots of land are available and how many farms are there and the rental price. For the reward, we use the cumulative equity capital. So we look at it at the end of the simulation iteration, which is normally 10 years. And the reason for this is that we don't want the farms to game the system. So if you look it from 1 year, and this is more long-term, not short-term measure, you can't just look at maybe profit for 1 year, we need to look at it in terms of the whole year. So which now, to design the experiment, we had to set up 2 different simulation environments, because some farms are using AgriPoliS and one farm is using reinforcement learning, but also using the AgriPoliS environment. And the idea was that there's a communication exchange between these 2 environments. AgriPoliS is hosted in C++, but we did the reinforcement learning in Python. So the farms all prepare their bids, which goes to the rental market, then investment, production, resorts, accountancy, and decides to quit farming. At the end of this, these state variables are transmitted to the model, and through the model, through our algorithm, the farm is able to decide what to bid next, and this continues over a certain period of time. So to initialize the model, we have a replay buffer. We run a number of simulations, and the best simulation are stored in the model. Let me show you some of the results. So we can see that the farm is able to come up with a strategy to ensure that they grow. And for the bidding strategy, we find if you're able to follow is that it's not like a fixed, the farm should be able to take into account all these other variables and decide. So it's not a straight line, it's more of iterations. So this is based on the best simulations in the run, and we see like the reinforcement learning agent has higher capital. It makes more money than the standard agent would from having a variable strategy. In terms of land, they also rent more land. Might explain why they are also growing faster than the other farms. So to conclude, yeah, it's possible. One thing is that we're able to integrate and get this to communicate, because they need to communicate in real time, because there's data being fed from Python to C++ and back. And the second is that it's better to be flexible and also improved long-term performance. And to go forward, we're still continuing with the experiment, and we are focusing on making the results to be more stable. So we are also trying out with different farms. And like I said, this is a small region, but with only 7 farms, which in hindsight, for a normal region, would have even 1,000 or more farms. So how can we have now an environment that does all that? Thank you for listening to my presentation. If you want to find us, I've linked my contact there, and down below here we link to our software. So it links to the AgriPoliS website where we have our software. We also have our research data management plan and our software plan included in it in case you want to find out more information. Thank you.